So I would like to start tonight talking a little bit about the organization that has put this together. My name is Dave Peaty. I am the board chair of an all-volunteer nonprofit called Berkeley Disaster Preparedness Neighborhood Network. Horrible name. We're going to work on the name. It's long and convoluted, but it suffices for now. I also want to introduce Lynn Zumo. She is the vice president of the board. She is here tonight. She will be monitoring the chat, letting people in. If you have questions, you can feel free to post it in the chat, but also you can also direct things directly to her as well. So Berkeley Disaster Preparedness Neighborhood Network, which I'm going to fondly call BDPN, has been around for about 10 years. And we are an organization that works to sort of fill in where the city might not be doing things. They have a wonderful program called CERT, which stands for Community Emergency Response Team Training, I think. But we are a community-based organization, and our number one drive is to work to get neighborhoods connected with each other, working to support each other in a disaster, not just neighborhoods, but individuals as well. We are really adamant that in a disaster, the actual first responders are us. We are the ones who are going to show up for each other. And that's why these kinds of Zoom connections are really important, I think, so that we can have the kind of conversations with each other to talk about disaster preparedness and what we can do to support each other through this whole process. I don't pretend to be an expert. I'm not a former firefighter or anything like that. I'm a book publisher. This is just really important to me, this strong sense of community and why we're all here. BDPN, one of our main philosophies is that the number one way to best prepare for any kind of disaster is to get to know your neighbor. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind here tonight. We're going to be focused on these Go kits. Go kits are really important, but they are only a part of a disaster preparedness plan. We're going to go over like what works in a Go kit for you and how you can figure out what best to put into a Go kit that's not already in there. But I really want everyone who's showing up here tonight to think about how this fits into sort of the 4 or 5 steps that really we should be going through to prepare for a disaster. Think about what a disaster is, right? The very nature of a disaster is that the people, the organizations, the institutions that we normally rely on to come to our aid and rescue, firefighters, are going to be overwhelmed. It's going to be more than they can handle. They're going to be focused on the most important things in front of them at the time, and there's going to be a period of chaos. So really, this is about a time where community is going to be stepping up for each other. And we can step up for each other at the time of a disaster, but we can also step up for each other like tonight, where we are planning for a disaster. And so I really want to strongly urge all of you to take the time between now and when you actually physically get your Go kit to figure out, how am I going to connect with my community so that I'm better prepared for disaster? We have a wonderful organization that is sprung up very grassroots called Berkeley Mutual Aid. It popped up as a result of COVID, and BDPN is acting as sort of the nonprofit umbrella for them. But they have a wonderful program, for instance, called a wildfire buddy training program, where you can be paired up with someone who's sort of a wildfire buddy. This is not someone who's going to come up into the middle of a wildfire to rescue you, but this is someone who's going to help you prepare and get ready for a wildfire and figure out, how am I going to get notified? How am I going to evacuate? How am I going to do these things? So I've talked a little bit about sort of the larger context. One of the things that's in the Go kits that you'll get is paperwork. Paperwork, super boring, but in this case, it's really some vital information that I really want you to go through when you get the Go Kit. Don't just get the Go Kit and put it by your bed or put it by your front door. You're really going to have to spend some time figuring out what's in there, how to arrange it in a way that works for you, adding stuff that you're going to need to add for you personally. But there's also this paperwork, and that paperwork is really important. And we're going to kind of go through that together tonight. Okay, so I actually have one of the Go Kits here with me tonight. This is what they look like. They're not big, but we specifically made them not too big so that they wouldn't be too heavy. You may decide that actually this red backpack does not work for you, that you want something that has a handle and wheels and that you can pull behind you, that really you want to take enough stuff that it's going to be too heavy for you to carry. So the very first thing that we're looking at, which is just the thing that's holding the stuff, the backpack itself, is something that you have to take into consideration about whether it works for you. You may already have a backpack that is better suited to you, that has more comfortable straps. I think we did a pretty good job of finding a backpack that was reasonably affordable for this program, but at the same time, pretty durable, pretty sturdy. So it has a number of different zippers and that kind of thing. I strongly recommend that you label it, and we can talk about what you might need to do, what kind of modifications you might need to make for whatever kind of situation that you have, whether you're sight impaired, or whether you have mobility issues. Those are all things that we should all be taking into account, our own specific needs. Okay, so I'm going to set the backpack aside for now. So the first thing that I'm hoping all of you will do when you open it up is this sheet. I don't expect you to read it here tonight. You don't need to look at it. We'll provide links later on to the version that we have online if you want. But as I said, your backpack will come with one of these. And what this is simply is a list of what is in your backpack. Very straightforward, but what's great about it is it also has a list of what is not in your backpack. In some ways, this is the more important part. And we're going to take the second half of this presentation to talk about what's not in your Go Kit. Okay. The other two pieces of paper work that are in it, we got some funding from the state Listos program. Listos in Spanish means ready, I believe. It's not a Spanish language program. They just use that word just because it worked well. And it's yours may not look exactly like this one. There are different versions. This is the big print version, I think. But the great thing about it is provides you with guidance on how to undertake your disaster preparedness plan. So it guides you through the various steps. And one of the big ones, of course, is just writing down certain kinds of information so that you always have it available. Things like, who are your contacts? Who are your trusted allies who are going to be there for you if you reach out to them in a disaster? Who are the ones who are out of state, who you might be able to text, or who you can reach and they will contact all the people who know and love and care about you. So we're not going to go in great detail about that tonight, but this is the context that I was talking about before. The Go Kits are really just one part of your disaster preparedness plan, and this is the thing that's going to help you guide it. I do want to be clear that BDPN has a great website. We provide lots of information above and beyond what's in here. So if you want to dive into bigger, deeper details about things like water storage, different kinds of food, first aid kits, our website is great for that. And we'll put that in the chat, and we'll also send it in the email after this session through the Eventbrite channel so that you'll have all that information. Don't worry too much if I'm going quickly and you're worried about missing things like, URLs or anything like that. We're definitely going to provide them, so not to worry. We also get this wonderful map from the Berkeley Path Wanderers Association. I'm a huge fan of this organization, which has been around for a long time and does amazing work in restoring the over 150 paths in the Berkeley and Oakland Hills to pristine condition. There's still some to go, but they understand that these pads that we have may be vital to certain folks in evacuation situations, so they know that this is an important piece of information. But I want to say this: the reason we include this map is not just because of the paths. It's a great map of Berkeley. And if there's a disaster where we don't have power, or you don't have GPS on your phone, smartphone, if you have a smartphone, we're going to go back to old times of printed maps. So all the folks probably here at the meeting today already have a leg up on over my kid, who really has never had to use one of these and has totally relied on the GPS. So kudos to all of you for that. So this is a great resource all around. Okay. So I'm going to start with sort of the high price ticket item in the backpack. And it's kind of the most complicated one. And when you get your backpack, I really want you to take a look at it. So this is it. You don't have to read it. This is a radio flashlight charger that has a wind-up charger and a solar charger. It's a pretty complicated piece of electronics equipment. We are not providing you with the what I believe is AAA batteries that are necessary for this, partly because we know that some of the folks who get one of these and immediately put batteries in it are going to forget about the fact that when you leave batteries in something that's not being used, it can corrode and destroy this piece of equipment. So we specifically don't do that. If you want to get batteries, which actually I do recommend, keep it in a separate Ziploc bag, which we've provided in the backpack. There's a separate Ziploc bag that you can use. There is also a rechargeable battery in this unit. So I really recommend that you go through the steps. One of our board members realized that the tiny type in the manual is not going to be appropriate for some people. So he put together this wonderful color, larger print explanation of how you can go through and learn about the battery, but also how you make sure it's up and running. Again, really important that you take the time when you get your Go kit to figure out, how am I going to get this thing working and how am I going to use it? I want to familiarize myself with all of the things that it can do, because it can do a lot. But I'm not going to do it when it's a disaster. I'm doing it ahead of time, because in a disaster is when we're all panicky and our brains are all frazzled. And that's not the time to try to figure out something that's a little bit tricky. If you get this and struggle with it, you'll have our email. Our website is on here. You can reach out to us and we can try to help give you guidance on how to work through it. But take a stab at it first. I know that I've got kind of big clunky fingers, and some of the things that you have to do in terms of putting the rechargeable battery on, it's a little bit tricky. So take the time. Don't get frustrated. You can reach out to us if you start getting frustrated, but this is something to pay attention to. The other thing that's really important to remember about this is that you can charge things that are important to you, things like a smartphone, but you need to make sure that it has the right kind of connector for your phone. You may have to go out and get a cable, and that's really important. If you're relying on this to charge your phone and you haven't taken that step to figure out, is this the cable that works for my phone, then you're going to be, then it's wasted. All it is a flashlight. Okay. That's the most complicated and expensive piece of equipment in here. This may be one of the most important. This is a can of water. It may seem odd to have a can of water, but this is a very unusual can of water. This can of water is rated to last 50 years. You put it in your Go kit and you never have to think about it again. You may want more water. You may want a different kind of packaged water as well. Water is very heavy in a backpack, so you need to really think about what kind of weight am I adding to my backpack that I'm going to have to lug around. But we thought one can of water was probably the right way to go. If you want more of this, you can't really get it in a store. You can try reaching out to us. Sometimes we make big purchases, big volume purchases, and try to get things at a reduced rate. There's kind of a run on these right now, so it's hard to get. But if in the future you want them, feel free to reach out and we can let you know if we're doing something like that. Best of all, you can get on our mailing list and be kept apprised about things like that we're doing, other kind of projects. We do not abuse our mailing list. We come out with stuff maybe once or twice a month. Is that right, Lynn? We don't send out too much.
No, we don't send out much. Sometimes, sometimes we have a lot going on. We may be announcing trainings, or with Berkeley Mutual Aid, or even with the Berkeley CERT program, there are training opportunities, and we do send those out. And sometimes they overlap, or sometimes there's multiple a month, but usually you don't hear from us very often.
Yeah, and it's wildfire season right now.
It
right?
is wildfire season.
So we're going to be sort of keeping you apprised of all the opportunities to prepare for wildfires now. So it's a little bit heavier now. Okay, so the next thing that comes up on the list of what's in your book, in your Go Kit, is energy bars. Thank you, Cliff Bar Company, local wonderful company, who donated 5,000 of these so that each of you could have 2 of them in your Go Kit. It's really sort of very high calorie, helps in a situation where you might not have access to a healthy meal for a while. But I want you to take a look at them when they come in, because maybe you're allergic to peanuts and the one that you got is the peanut one. It also may be something like, I can't stand those. I never want to eat those, which means that you need to figure out what you want to put in there that you would be willing to eat and lug around. So the other thing, of course, is that these go bad, right? These expire. I can't read it, but I can get a magnifying glass, but they don't last forever. They're probably rated for another year. I'm sure there's probably safe for another year after that. Please don't take me to court if I'm wrong about that. Take a look at the expiration date and see. But that is one of the things that you're going to have to kind of go through your Go Kit every once in a while and see, oh, is this stuff still good? Can of water, 50 years. This is probably just a year. One of the things that we try to remind people at BDPNN is when it is time change time, in other words, leap forward, fall back 1 hour. Whenever there's an extra hour that we're gaining, we in Berkeley Disaster Prep always advise, take that hour to and spend it on preparing for your disaster. And one of the things is going through your Go Kit. The other one is checking your smoke alarms, things like that. We highly recommend that. Okay. We have a couple other bags within bags. So there are ziploc bags, which help sort of group things together. You do not have to keep them grouped together this way. In fact, I recommend that when you get this, open up these ziploc bags and start pawing through and seeing what's in here. So that's what I'm going to do right now really quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on most of this stuff. This is a glow stick. I'm hoping most of you know what this is. The great thing about a glow stick is it provides light without relying on a battery. You open it up and you snap it open, easy directions, and you've got a glow stick that's lasting for 8 to 10 hours. It can be really helpful when there's no power and maybe you've got a flashlight somewhere, but you can't get to it. You've got a glow stick now that can help you get to it, especially if you didn't follow my advice and you ended up not charging this and you don't have the light that comes with it. Okay. I am a big proponent of whistles. So whistles in an emergency can be really helpful if you are trapped someplace, if you're injured, you might not have the strength necessarily to call out for help, but a little tiny whistle, and this is the weirdest looking whistle I've ever seen. They work really well though. I'm not gonna blow it too loud. They work really well. I recommend that you actually figure out some way to attach it to the outside of your backpack. That way it's going to be readily accessible. You can attach it to your zipper and it actually makes it easier for you to open and close your backpack because it's a larger thing to grab onto. I highly recommend that. So one of the things that we try to tell people, if you come away with no other information tonight, maybe you can learn the one thing is that there is a code to whistles. So if you are in an emergency and need help, the code for help is 3 blasts on the whistle. that lets people know someone is in need of help. You just repeat that 3 whistle blasts. And then when someone's calling to you and asking questions about you, who you are and what your condition is, and you can provide yes or no answers, because the code for yes or no with a whistle is 1 blast is yes, and 2 blasts is no. You're already learned something tonight, and this Zoom, suffering through my Zoom presentation is already worth it. We do have a pen also in here. It's really important to have a writing device. We provided you with no paper. I don't think that was an oversight. We just figured most people have a pad of paper in their house. Add it, and that's on the what's not in there list. So we'll cover that. So not to worry. I personally like a big old fat Sharpie. And so for my Go Kit, I added a big fat Sharpie because that's a big sign that you can leave for someone on your door saying, I'm safe, I'm going to Martin Luther King Park, meet me there. And that way it's not just a little big ballpoint pen. I think it's great that we included this, but you might want to think about what are the other things that you want. The other thing that's in here is one of these folded up Mylar blankets. I don't know if anyone has ever used one of these. I thought they're ridiculous. They're so thin. What good can they do? And then I was on a 100-mile bike ride and nearly froze my tush off. This thing saved me. It really, really works. So this thing that feels like it's not going to do anything could really be a lifesaver for you. Along the same lines, we have a poncho, super small poncho. We're in a drought. We're never going to see water again for the next 5 years, but hey, you can use it as something to sit on. There are lots of ways that you can use a lot of the things that we're providing in a Go Kit for you that might not have been the way that they were intended, but are still super of use for you. Okay. I'm going to pause. Lynn, is there anything in the chat any questions that are coming up so far?
There's a question about volunteer opportunities, but I think we can address those at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I love that people are showing up and saying, how can I help? There are lots of ways that you can help, and we'll definitely cover those. We have another Ziploc bag that is a very basic rudimentary first aid kit. You might want to look at it and say, oh, there's more. This is not going to save a life. This is about addressing small scratches or that kind of thing that are going to be an irritant. Maybe, for instance, if you get a cut on your foot, it might help you evacuate more quickly. There is one piece in here that is actually quite an important piece, and we kind of splurged on it. We had a lot of discussions around this item. It's a blood stop pack, and basically one of the things that is a really serious injury that even someone who's not a medical professional can do to save someone's life is stopping a serious bleed. And that's what this is. This is a pack wound in there. It'll help stop a serious bleed. I'm not going to go into how to use it tonight. I recommend that you take the time to learn about it. You also need to know that because there are chemicals involved, this will go bad after a while, and you can make the decision about whether it's something you want to replace over time or not. Just throwing it out there. Okay. We've got gloves in here. These have kind of this, it's not like latex gloves. These are more like gardening gloves with little stoppers on them, help you grip things, but could help with both heat, could also help with sharp objects. It can be penetrated, so it's not like hard leather gardening gloves that are going to prevent you from cutting yourself if you touch something super sharp. But we thought it might be really helpful. We do have latex gloves. We do have N95 masks. I think we all know how important N95 masks are given this pandemic, but of course also for smoke. Okay. That is basically what is in the Go kits that we will be providing to you. I think we priced it out. If you were going to do this, it was going to cost you about maybe $50, maybe a little bit more than that. you know, we bought in volume, so we got it for pretty cheap. We do not do a needs assessment. We're not, that's not what we're trained to do. We're just assuming everyone is here. If you have capacity to provide money for this, you're welcome to donate to Berkeley Disaster Prep, to Berkeley Mutual Aid, or any organization that you want to put that money towards. You're getting a free Go kit. We'll just assume that you need it for free, but if you have capacity and you want to donate on behalf of this amazing program, we will not turn your money away. Okay, we got everything in here. Let's go over what is not in your emergency kit. We're at 7:30 now. Didn't I say I was going to be done in 20 minutes? Yeah, okay. This is my first time out, folks, so thanks for your patience. We're going to kind of rip through this, but in some ways, this is that community part that I was talking about. BDPN meetings, we really try to consider, even when we were meeting in person, but also on Zoom, we know that there are people who have really good ideas as well as questions around the topics that we're talking about. So we're going to talk really briefly about what is not in your kit, and you can decide about what you need to add, but you may want to share things in here that I'm not going to say, but you might want to share with the community. Please do. And we'll also share that in the email if there's some good additions. Okay, the first thing is paperwork. Again, paperwork. Your an ID, contact information for all those people that you put together on that trusted ally list so that you can get in touch with them. If your phone dies, you're not, you know, I know 2 phone numbers now. You know, when we were all growing up, we knew all these phone numbers, but now we don't need to because we have our smartphones, so we no longer are. And so you really should be keeping a list of contact information. I don't know about you folks, but if any of you have pets, I consider them a part of my family. I have pictures of my pets. And the reason for that is if I get separated from them and I say, have you seen Ruby? Nobody knows who Ruby is, but I show a picture of her, then you know. Insurance and financial information, always super important to sort of assess your insurance needs, both in terms of, you know, property insurance, but your own health insurance and financial information. You can decide how much cash you might want to put in there. There is this thing that happens, right? You start putting a lot of private information into a Go kit, and you the potential for, if someone steals it or you lose it, of having your information out there. So you need to take that into account about what kind of information you're putting in there and where your Go kit is. If you're keeping your Go kit in your car, for instance, they get stolen out of there all the time. Nobody knows what's in there when they're breaking into your car to steal a Go kit. They're just going to take it. And if they get your information, that's going to cost you a lot of time in terms of trying to make sure that all your information is secure. I put spare keys in there to the car and to my house, just because I'm grabbing it and dashing it out. I do keep a little bit of cash in there. I keep mine by my bed, and when I charge my smartphone, I literally put my smartphone in my Go kit with a wire that's charging it as it charges overnight. So if there's a disaster and I'm grabbing my Go kit, I've already got both my my phone in there as well as everything else that's in the Go kit. Glasses, I have a spare pair from the last time I upgraded my prescription. Some people just put their glasses in there, you know, when they go to bed. They just go ahead and put them in there. I leave that up to you. Again, we talked a little bit about the spare batteries, and spare batteries for the radio flashlight charger, I think is good, but there may be other things that you want to put in there. This flashlight is, one of the things that's not great about it is you have to hold this, right? Same thing with the flashlight that's a part of your smartphone. Some people supplement the flashlight in here with one of those cool camper headband flashlights that has a headlamp on it, and then your hands free, so you can be carrying a backpack, you can be moving things out of your way, etc. I think that's a super smart idea. Some people put safety goggles in here. That can be helpful in a number of scenarios. I was here for the 1989 quake. I was in San Francisco, and it was amazing how much dust and debris got kicked up when that hit, and it was really hard on the eyes. Obviously, wildfires and that kind of thing can help too. I have a Swiss Army knife in mine. You can kind of decide how important that is to you. My Swiss Army knife has a corkscrew, which is very important to me in a disaster situation. I need access to my wine, and I'm keeping that with me.
So we have somebody in the chat who said a handheld generator.
So in some ways, that's what this is. So this generator is, I mean, this charger has a solar panel on it, but it also has a handheld crank. So this has that capacity. There are also handheld batteries for cell phones, smartphones, and you may want to keep those too. They have to be charged up periodically, and we can talk more about that later if we want. We talked a little bit about pets and making sure that you have those photos for them, but you also want to make sure that you are providing for them and the things that they need, kibble, a leash, those kinds of things. And if you have a service dog, obviously super important to make sure that you know, you've got the right things so that you can get supported by your service animal as well. Toiletries. You can kind of decide. I think we've got some very minimal toiletries in here. I added a whole roll of toilet paper. You can kind of decide what you want to do. It's hard to, one of the hardest things about all this is predicting what the situation is that you are trying to prepare for. But you're always going to need toilet paper. It's not going to be a bad thing. You can use it for other things as well.
We have a question in the chat about, does each person in the household need one of the kits?
That's a great question, and there's not a set answer for that. So for instance, if you've got a 3-year-old, yeah, there should be stuff in there for a 3-year-old, and you're not going to make your 3-year-old carry a backpack around, would be my guess. And so you'll probably be adding that. But if you've got a teenager, you may say, hey, absolutely, let's have your own backpack, and let's make sure that it has everything that you need in it. I was pretty adamant, for instance, that my wife have her own kit, and she, you know, puts her own stuff in it. The reason is this: there are things that we haven't gotten to yet, but specifically around things like we've touched on prescription glasses. So, you know, she's got her glasses, I've got my glasses. Same thing with meds, right? Prescription medications. Right. She's got hers, I got mine. I don't. Our pill boxes look pretty similar. I want to keep them separate. She may be thinking that actually I'm just like, you're on your own in a disaster. That's not what it is. But I think for us, it's important that each of us have one, and you kind of have to make a decision with your household about how that is. The other thing is, of course, a disaster can hit when you're not together. So you need to be able to respond, you know, accordingly. There are lots of things that we have in here, as I said, that you might want to double up on: more water, more food, more Ziploc bags. I've talked about the flashlight a little bit as well. Some people have talked about how their iPad is super important to them and they're going to take it with them. Maybe they wrote the Great American Novel, it's on there, and they didn't upload it to the cloud, and we want to make sure that it's going to be safe for all of posterity. You guys can decide that. Okay, that's just kind of a short list of what is not in your Go Kit. And as I said, you will have that list when you get your Go Kit. And we made it so it's a little, you know, checklist, and you can decide what's important to me, what's not. The thing I would say is, you know, we didn't provide all of these things, partly because we can't provide your medications, right? And we didn't have enough money. I mean, we would have probably not produced very many if we got every one of these things. But also, it's going to make this backpack pretty heavy if we start adding all of this stuff. I've got my hiking boots in mine, and that's crazy heavy. And you have to make a decision about sort of the weight of what I'm going to be carrying around, and how far am I going to be carrying around, and what do I really need? So those are the decisions that you're going to make.
We have a question about suggestions on food.
Yeah, so you know, they have these MREs, right? What do they stand for? Military ration.
You've thrown me off, but it's yeah, it's a military food, little packets.
Yeah, it's an edible, but the deal is, of course, the assumption is when you're desperate enough, you'll eat anything. But it's super high calorie. It'll help you survive. You have to make that decision about what kind of foods are going to last. Some people are really into camping, right? So they can get these actually pretty tasty foods that they can put in these kits, and then as they go camping, they just kind of cycle it through. It doesn't even have to be you, the one that's camping. Say you've got, a nephew who's really into camping, and you just say, I want some, buy me some extra camping food and I'll cycle it through. Every year I'll give you whatever I'm not using and I'll replenish my stash. Someone asked about where to keep your Go kits, and that's an excellent question. I think I mentioned I keep mine by my bed. I do not have one in my car, but my wife does, partly because I don't have a trunk. It would be very exposed. She has a trunk and she keeps it in there, and that's really works for her because she travels every day to work. So she spends a fair amount of time either in her car or near her car. So it's really works for her. And that is not the situation for me. I'm at home all the time. I work from my home. And so that works for me. Again, all of this that we're talking about tonight is assessing your needs, right? So if you are a person, for instance, who has a walking cane because you have visual impairment, you might want to keep a spare cane in there. I mean, that's something that, doesn't come into my purview because I'm just not thinking about it, but you're going to know things about your own situation that nobody else is going to know or understand. The other thing is the visual impairment thing is we did a whole series with Lighthouse for the Blind, and Lighthouse for the Blind is labeling a lot of stuff for their clients so their clients can find it, but also their clients understand like they really need to be familiar with what's in their Go kit. So when the time comes, they're not trying to figure out what is this and what is that. And that's true for those of us who, don't have major visual impairment, but trying to find something in a Go kit when the pressure is on and we're feeling a little panicky, that's not the time to familiarize yourself with it. Using all the zippers and everything, that's important too. I'm going to pause here because I'm going to share a poll which will be addressing the issue that somebody raised, which is how do we get the Go kits? So I'm going to share a poll. I've never done this before, so you're going to have to help me if I do it wrong. So I'm going to launch a poll, and here's the basic poll. Partly, this is just us making sure that we're giving Go kits to people who came to these Zoom sessions. So it's a way of assessing like, oh yeah, you showed up, you're going to participate in the poll. But once you participate in the poll, the reason we made you sign up with your email is that I can see how you respond to this poll, and I can determine how we're going to get you a Go kit. So this is the first Zoom that we've done. It's on the 10th. There are 3 more in August. The advantage for you eager beavers that you showed up at the very first one is that we're participating in an event at San Pablo Park this coming Saturday. It's called Community Day event. It's something that usually happens every year. It did not happen last year because of the pandemic. And it's a wonderful event put on by, I think, the Covenant Church, but a whole bunch of organizations. We'll be tabling there, and we will be bringing Go kits so that you can come and pick it up. And we'll have a list based on this poll of who said that they were going to come pick them up. And so either you have a capacity to come pick it up, you have a friend or someone else who can come pick it up on your behalf. That's another option in this poll. And the other one is that, no, I need help finding someone who can go pick it up and deliver it to me. That's obviously, the choice that's the hardest for us because we're an all volunteer organization. We're not a big organization. So we're going to work hard to find someone who can deliver it to you. But if you can be the resource on picking it up, that's the best bet. And then the other option is, of course, I can, I have capacity to pick up my Go kit, but I can't do it this Saturday. I'm going to be in Venezuela and can't do it. So that's the rest of it. So looks like I've got, how many people are here? 42 participants. 3 of us are not participating in the polls. Okay, we've got some people who have yet to participate in the polls. And so I'm going to leave the poll up for a little bit. And we'll see if other people join in the poll. As I said, I want to really reiterate for those of you who might have stepped away from the Zoom for a second, if you want to Go kit, you got to respond to the poll. That's how we know how to get it to you.
Dave, we have somebody who says they don't have access to the poll. Some people are saying, where's the poll? Mine is popping up in a separate kind of window in front of the participants, the speakers and the participants in the Zoom. It popped up as a separate window, part of Zoom, but still, but it's a separate window. I can move it around and so on.
There are some people here who are here tonight who already got a Go Kit, which is, thank you so much for showing up. We have done a couple of events at Strawberry Creek and at Redwood Garden and a couple of other places, and some people couldn't make the in-person presentation. If you can't participate in a poll, it's not a disaster. Just send us an email. Lynn is going to put that email in the chat and just explain the situation, and we'll figure out some way to respond. But since you can't see the poll, again, going over the options again of what you can do. This is San Pablo Park. The address is 2800 Park Street in Berkeley. So this is a couple of blocks north of Ashby and a couple of blocks west of San Pablo Avenue. It's a park that we've had a number of events before, and there happens to be this event. We will have other opportunities for pickups. We just don't know what they are yet. All of these bags are being stored at the Berkeley Food Network. They've been amazingly supportive of us and have even helped us assemble these Go Kits, but they can't handle 500 individuals coming to say, I'm here for my Go Kit. That's not within their purview of what they're all about. So
remind of the hours for Saturday.
Saturday is from 10 to 2 o'clock. I'm going to be arriving at 10. So if you're an eager beaver, I just want to warn you, I'm probably going to take a little time to set up a table, but I have to go pick up the Go Kits beforehand. So you have to give me a little time to get set up. It's going to be like an event with a whole bunch of different organizations. So you're going to have to come find us, BDPN, and our table there.
We have a couple people who are looking for an additional kit for someone else in their household.
Yes. So this is not a one kit per household program. This is a one kit per senior or person with a disability. We also have kits for caregivers. If someone is really actually needing that their caregiver have the Go Kit more important than them, like their capacity to manage one. So for instance, I know one scenario where someone has pretty severe dementia and their capacity to use a lot of the stuff that would be in a Go Kit is pretty diminished, but their caregiver who's going to be with them a lot, it makes more sense for that caregiver to be getting a Go Kit. So that's in that particular situation. So, think about what the needs are, but absolutely reach up and sign up to get a Go Kit, even if you someone else in your home has already gotten one or has already signed up. That's not a problem.
We have a question about disabled access to the park.
I'm 98% sure that it is ADA compatible, only because of this came up because we did an event there and we wanted to make sure it was ADA. This is an outdoor event. We will be fully masked. We will be keeping our distance from you. Delta variant is real. Now there's a Lambda variant. So we are taking all that super seriously, but we will have Go Kits to give to you in person at this event.
Question, it's a big park. Will you be on the Park Street side?
That's an excellent question. I don't have an answer for that, but we will be probably in the southeast corner.
There's a question as to what the event is again. Someone must have missed what the event is for Saturday.
It's a very generic name. It's called Community Day Event. I think ostensibly what it's been in the past is it's an event to help families with students who might need help preparing for the upcoming school year. So there's a lot of support in the way of school supplies, but there are also like lifelong medical is there. So people who have healthcare situations, basically they are there to do a lot of community support. And that's why we've been invited, because they know that's the focus of what we're all about, is community helping community. And that's basically what this event is.
Do you need to identify yourself to get the disaster bag?
Your name or needs to be on the list. So if you're sending someone on your behalf, we're not going to be checking IDs. We're basically going to be, this is all about trust. And if someone comes and they have your name, we're going to give them a Go Kit.
Okay.
This is a private Zoom event, by the way. This was not through Eventbrite. It was a private thing, and only people who sign up for the program have access to this. So, you know, it's not as though we're getting, you know, lurkers who are going to make hordes of money on taking people's Go kits. We have extras. It's not sold out. Yeah, not that we're selling, but we should have plenty.
Is there a comparable program in Albany?
Email me.
Okay, email the email address.
Yeah.
I put it in here. I'm going to put it in again. I'm going to continually put the email address in the chat.
Yeah.
Can you recommend disaster store to find emergency stuff?
That's an excellent question. That landscape changes really quickly and certainly has been changing during this COVID pandemic. You know, this program, we had hoped to start it over a year ago, and the pandemic really shut it down. And it's not just because we couldn't meet in person, but the supply chains totally got disrupted. They still are totally disrupted. We feel like they're a little bit settled out now, so that it was worthwhile going. Again, I would say email me. We as an organization try not to do too much in the way of endorsements of private companies. One is just a slippery slope. That's part of the reason. And so I would say just email us if you need something in particular. The other thing that I would say is join the discussion group. So we have two ways of joining up with BDPN. One is you can just be on our mailing list, and anyone can be on our mailing list. If you live or work in Berkeley, you can be part of our discussion group. You'll get both of our announcements in either one. But the nice thing about our discussion group is you can put out a question and lots of people might have support on it. So if you say like, oh, I really want to try to get more of that blue can water. Does anyone have anything? We can do that. People can respond. So
how do you know if you have my name on your list?
How do I know, or how does the person know?
How do you know? The network. How
The
does
network knows, because when you signed up, it goes into a database spreadsheet and we can look it up, and all those answers, the answers that you gave go into that database spreadsheet and we look that up.
Well, plus if you're here tonight, you were on a list already.
Yes.
Okay. We have somebody saying they're picking up for Elmwood, Redwood Gardens Senior Apartment Building, where she lives.
Gotcha. Okay. So, you know, we are going to try to figure out if there's a way to kind of coordinate. If, for instance, people need Go kits delivered and we get volunteers to do it, we're going to try to work it out in terms of, gosh, would you be willing to deliver a Go kit to this other person who needs it and they're like a block away? I'm not making any commitments to that right now. This is our first time out and we're going to try to make that work. I had all these very fancy ideas about using like a Google map with pins dropped and people, yeah, it's a typical Dave P making a complicated situation 10 times more complicated, but we'll figure it out. And we can do that. So yes, so you can, if you are, for instance, you live in Redwood Gardens, and you know of 3 other people who are also going to be picking up Go kits, yeah, you can pick up on their behalf at the event on Saturday, absolutely. So that's fine. And maybe now's a good time to talk about the volunteer opportunities, right? So send me an email if you are interested in volunteering. There are lots of ways to volunteer for this program in particular, but also around disaster preparedness in general. So one is we have these work assembly parties where we are assembling these Go kits. We just had one this past Saturday. It's at Berkeley Food Network. It is indoors. It's in a big warehouse space. So it's relatively open. There's a big, you know, loading dock open, but it is indoors. So it's fully masked. And we do try to sort of keep a safe distance from each other. But we recognize that that is not a comfortable scenario for a lot of us. And, you know, absolutely not. So the other thing that we're really going to need is people who can make phone calls. There are a lot of people who signed up for this program who don't have email capacity, can't navigate the internet. Zoom is too much for them, but they have a phone number and they want to participate in this program. So we're still working on the kinks, exactly how that's going to be, but we can use a bank of people to make phone calls. We'll give you a script. You don't have to be a disaster preparedness expert to make these phone calls. This is really just about connecting with community and trying to figure out what's the best way for us to support them. So yeah, the short answer is email us and we'll get you on our volunteer list and we'll find something that works for you. We have the same thing on our board. We have a working board and there are folks in there, you know, who have mobility issues, who have, you know, health issues, and they're not going to expose themselves to working with other people indoors, but they are doing work and there's going to be lots of opportunities for you to do that kind of stuff. We're coming up on an hour. So I was going to try to do this in 40 minutes. Vinny, how are you holding up?
I'm okay.
Okay, good. Kudos. Thank you so much again, Vinny, for all this amazing work. Do we have any other questions, Lynn? That
Nope. Oh, I put in the chat the location at San Pablo Park near Ashby and San Pablo, our email address, and between those two, we can get everything answered.
Excellent.
If there were further questions.
Okay. So I'm happy to stay on for a little bit longer. If people have specific questions, I can unmute everyone. Vinny is not going to try to interpret everyone's talking, but I'm happy to do that. But we're basically winding down. The other thing that I'm really hoping everybody can do is share this. There are other people I know out there who, even if they have a Go kid, they can still come and have this conversation about how we can better support each other. And lastly, 2 nights from now, Thursday night, we are having a wildfire buddy training that is through Berkeley Mutual Aid. And you can sign up for that. That is a public Eventbrite posting. If you go to Eventbrite and you search for wildfire buddy training, you can do it, but we'll also provide you the link in the email that goes out to all of you probably tomorrow morning. We will be sharing this video recording as well.